Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating philosophical text by Xu Feng. It's called Fated Encounters, Fated Departures. And let me tell you, it attempts to fundamentally shift how we process grief, loss, and the whole concept of human attachment. Basically, it's a deep dive into how we view our timelines and those unpredictable forces of destiny. Now, whether you totally agree with its spiritual claims or not, it honestly offers a super thought-provoking framework for dealing with some of life's absolute hardest moments. Okay, let's start with this beautiful opening metaphor. The text establishes right out of the gate that mourning a loved one, it's as natural as the phases of the moon. It's a universal constant. The author even points out that if we didn't feel sorrow when someone passes, well, we wouldn't be any different from unfeeling grass or trees. But the core argument here is that while sorrow is a completely natural initial response, letting that grief permanently set up shop in your heart is unwise. It really just compounds the pain. Moving right along to Section 1, the inevitability of sorrow. Starting at the very human micro level, the text outlines what are traditionally known as the three great sorrows. We're talking about the death of a father in youth, the loss of a wife in middle age, or the death of a child in old age. The author fully acknowledges these as the ultimate, devastating hardships of human existence. And it's crucial that the text starts here, validating the sheer depth of human pain before trying to reframe it. He's definitely not dismissing the pain. He's categorizing its absolute worst forms. But here's where it gets really interesting. The author argues that the absolute greatest sorrow isn't physical death at all. It's something he calls the death of the heart. This happens when those left behind sink into such profound despair that their spirit effectively dies. The text brings up the tragic cultural story of Shenglin Cao. Her son was taken by wolves, and when he died, her heart literally died with him, leaving her completely trapped in emptiness. Avoiding this exact death of the heart is basically the entire goal of this text. Which brings us to Section 2, the illusion of control. This part brilliantly highlights the ultimate equalizer of the human condition. Think about it. Even the most powerful emperor, president, or billionaire simply cannot control the trajectory of their loved ones' lives. It literally doesn't matter how much money or influence you have. Parents can't fully control the paths of their kids, and kids can't alter the course of their parents' lives. Fortunes change in a split second, and everyone has a uniquely fated path. Recognizing this total lack of control, that's the very first step toward the peace the author is talking about. Next up, Section 3, universal symmetry and balance. So now we're zooming way out from individual struggles to the macro mechanics of the entire universe. The text brings in highly revered spiritual figures like the compassionate bodhisattvas Kshitigarbha and Avalokiteshvara. Their noble goal is to completely empty hell and liberate all beings from suffering. Incredible, right? But according to Xu Feng, even these unimaginably powerful figures cannot fully eliminate sorrow. Why? Because the universe fundamentally operates on balanced opposites. Life's spatial structures absolutely must remain symmetrical. Basically, to have the high, you have to have the low. To have joy, there has to be a balance of sorrow. And this brings us to a huge turning point. If life is totally impermanent and we have zero control over our loved ones' paths, and even divine beings can't erase suffering because the universe literally demands symmetry, how on earth does the author suggest we find peace? Can we ever actually escape this confusion? Let's look at Section 4, the Life Trinyan perspective. To find that clarity, the author introduces some very specific spiritual parameters. First off, he claims that in our current human era, only Jesus and Sakyamuni, the Buddha, truly understood the absolute essence of life. But I love the metaphors he uses next to explain how people will react to these teachings. He says it's just like cilantro. Some people find it incredibly fragrant, while others absolutely hate it. He also compares it to penicillin. It can totally save a life, but it can be lethal if you're allergic. He's basically saying, neutrally, that people will react differently to these esoteric teachings based entirely on their own destined connections. For those who do connect with this Life Chanyuan sanctuary, the text describes the feeling as a daily coolness, kind of like drinking from crystal clear streams right at the source of life. Which leads us to our final part, Section 5, reframing life and death. This comparison right here is the crux of the whole text. Conventionally, we look at a premature death as an absolute, profound tragedy. The author even admits that from a normal viewpoint, arguing otherwise sounds like total heretical nonsense. But the unconventional perspective flips that entirely. It argues that a tragic, early death might actually be a blessed, fated transition. It suggests the person is just moving through the human world to reach a much higher perfect realm, which he calls the 1,000-year world. Plus, it posits they might have come into your life purely to settle a karmic debt from a past life. The text boldly asks, if they're transitioning to a beautifully perfect existence, why are we grieving their happiness?
Now, I know wrapping your head around that unconventional view is incredibly tough. The author argues that to even begin to understand it, we have to totally shift our vantage point. We have to step back. From a human lifespan of just a few decades, we honestly can't see the big picture. Everything just looks chaotic and tragic. But if you view existence from a cosmic timeline of hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years, well, the text claims that the crazy interconnectedness of fortune and misfortune suddenly becomes brilliantly lucid.
Ultimately, the source material concludes with this exact, powerful directive. Fate brings us together and fate separates us. Reflect on this deeply. Because reunions and separations are driven by such incredibly complex, ancient causes and effects, we just have to learn to accept them. By understanding that these encounters and departures are completely fated, we can avoid that devastating death of the heart we talked about and stop endlessly grieving over things we simply cannot control. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Does viewing life through this vast lens of fated encounters and fated departures change how you view your own losses? Whether you take it as a literal cosmic truth or just a really profound psychological tool for letting go, it definitely shifts the mind toward a broader, more balanced view of existence. Thank you so much for exploring these incredible concepts with me today. Keep questioning and keep learning.